Hi, I'm Hank Mahler, the lead architect on Chevron's digital core program, where we're transforming our ERP environment. I'd like to talk to you about governing and managing our solution landscape based on the clean core principles. Chevron is on a journey to transform our ERP landscape from one that's very chaotic, dirty, hard to maintain, hard to upgrade, to one that drives our innovation at speed. To do this, we need a clean core. I'm going to talk about our journey to define, measure, and govern our environment aligned with the clean core principles. It starts with a fit to standard mindset. We start with 100% of our requirements. We try to drive the fit to standard where we can adopt SAP's best practices instead of our traditional internal practices. This has allowed us to drive to an 85% fit to standard mindset with a focus on just 15% of Chevron's specific capability gaps. That breaks down to 65% configurations. We've been able to partner with SAP to drive 8% of our future requirements to align with their roadmaps, and we have 12% of our environment and extensions required to integrate with our complex landscape beyond the ERP space. As we continue to understand these requirements, we drive to a clean core. We think of the configurations and those items on SAP's roadmap aligned with a clean core. When we do have to drive extensions, we try to follow the clean core practices. And you can see this driving to just 5.6% of our environments being addressed by customizations and extensions with technical debt. This is industry-leading clean core. This is our intention to drive the innovation at pace within Chevron. It is critical to our competitive advantage in the future. To do this, we set about a very deliberate process and journey to first define, measure, and then govern our extensions and our clean core. Starting with define, we had to acknowledge that this required a transformation of who we are. We're going from Chevron today, which is a decentralized system of decisions, to the Chevron of the future, where our goal is to intercept the future standard. Today, we are complex, highly customized. It is difficult for us to adopt and innovate. It is costly to operate. We lag behind upgrading our environments. Where we need to go to is to adopt that fit to standard mindset, to adapt quickly to new business values, new business opportunities, and a new environment. We anchor around SAP with loose coupling to our other applications instead of a spaghetti of point-to-point interfaces. We plan to upgrade 1 or 2 times per year, not once every 2 years. We're looking to lower our total cost of ownership by driving that clean core. We will do this through the governance and a mindset of fit to standard processes. We will ensure a strategic relationship between Chevron and SAP, aligning with the future direction, not understanding just current capabilities. We will incrementally transform with shorter release cycles, delivering business value faster. We will build our own internal org capabilities, thinking about continuous deployment, continuous delivery. We will partner with our digital platforms within inside of Chevron to ensure our future state is the direction where we will be going, not just supporting current needs. When we start defining what we think about a clean core, it's not just the extensibility. We think about the extensibility, the integrations with other applications, our standard business practices, the data, our software stack, and our architectural operations. Each of these can be broken down to specific behaviors that we want to drive. Extensibility. We don't want to duplicate standard SAP functionality. We want to leverage green architectural patterns. And by the end of this session, hopefully you'd understand what we mean by green patterns, and you'd want to follow that approach as well. We want to follow good coding standards and best practices. For our integrations, We want to leverage a services-oriented architecture. We want to leverage the green patterns. We want a stable interface across multiple versions of both producer and provider. We want to be able to properly monitor and resolve issues with our integrations at pace. Our processes, we want to follow the best practices enabled through our SAP applications. We want consistency from business unit to business unit. Our data is really important to enable us to keep a clean core. We need it to be complete, correct, used, and relevant. When you think about a software stack, it's not just the SAP code itself and making sure we're on a version. It's not just the SAP code itself. We want to be on the latest version, including the service packs, but it also extends to our third-party solutions. We need them to be certified and follow a clean core principle. Within Chevron, we do look to implement certified solutions. We will hold them accountable to the same standards that we hold ourselves. And then we want to talk about the architecture and operations. This begins to cover our governance processes and our day-to-day operations, ensuring that we're managing the code as it's released into production. So our clean core is well beyond just how do we code an extension, but covers everything from our extensibility, our business practices. Clean core covers our extensibility, our integrations, our business practices, our data, the software provided solutions that we're leveraging, and our architectural and operational processes. With this definition of a clean core, we now begin to say, how do we measure it? Just like how do we measure being good, we have to break it down and say, what are the actual decisions we're making at? And how do we measure at the point of decisions? So we have two things that we'll leverage when we talk about how do we measure. First, we use extension patterns. These patterns help us drive and understand the individual decisions we make as we code a specific extension. The analogy I use are building blocks. I have 3 boys, and we've built thousands of different things, all based on very common building blocks. These building blocks, while something physical, represent a reusable technical design. It could be, how do we extend a table? How do we create a CDS view? How do we create a Fiori tile? Each of those could be described by a pattern. And then as we assemble these patterns, these building blocks, we can go from individual building blocks to actually creating a car, creating an airplane, creating houses. We had endless creativity based on how we assemble these extension patterns. We will talk about how do we measure these patterns. Some carry more technical depth than others. Some are aligned with our intentions of a clean core more than others. And we use colors, red, yellow, green, to help us describe the technical depth or the alignment with the clean core. By using these patterns, we see several benefits. One is we can talk about the designs consistently across extensions, be it something for data conversion, be it a new Fiori tile, be it an analytics report. By having a common set of patterns, we can talk much more consistently about the technical depth and the alignment with clean core. It allows actually for better governance and traceability. We have that consistency. We all know what we're talking about. It reduces our risk during the deployment of a solution. We can actually talk about what we built and how it's going to impact our production environment and how we have to maintain it and manage that technical debt. It allows for higher flexibility and collaborations across our developers, our architects, and our business partners. It gives us that common language. And it helps us to have a dialogue to develop and future-proof our solutions. It does drive us to say and have the discussions. What's the technical debt? When am I going to have to replace it? How long is it going to live? So these patterns kind of form this architectural language that helps us build our solutions. The building blocks themselves are great, but I kind of hinted at assigning them colors. And we use the colors of a traffic light, red, yellow, and green, to help us understand technical debt. As you can imagine, green would incur the least technical debt. Red is the one we probably want to watch out the most. But we start talking about the intention of the classifications. In the simplest kind of language and thought, green is good. Green will help us kind of go from one release to the next. It's allowed in both single-tenant and multi-tenant editions. It does not incur technical debt. It does not force us or raise risks when it comes to upgrades. Green is inherently considered good, but these are kind of standard configurations. It allows us to do side-by-side extensions, leveraging SAP's business technology platform. It follows the Fiori standard designs for system enhancements and usability. Taking a step from green to yellow, we're beginning to incur some technical debt. In general context, if we have a yellow extension, we should at a minimum go through regression testing with each and every upgrade. It may not break, but we want to ensure it doesn't break with each of our upgrades. Some of the approaches are using SAP's custom fields and logic apps to define additional fields. We could be creating custom configuration tables, but these incur some level of technical debt, and we want to manage that. Fundamentally, these would be allowed in a single tenant edition, but it may not migrate to a multi-tenant edition. And finally, we get to the reds, the ones I would consider a big stop sign. These are our classic extensions. These, as I have our developers coming from our ECC environment, these are the traditional ways we've coded, but it incurs an incredible amount of debt. It may require redeployment or redevelopment after an upgrade. These are definitely not allowed in a multi-tenant environment. So we want to be able to not only talk about the building blocks themselves, but we assign each of those building blocks a very specific color. And with that, with the building blocks and the colors, we can now look at an extension. And how do we measure the extension? So the extension uses only green patterns, it's a green extension. If it uses at least one yellow and no red, it's a yellow extension. And if it uses any red extension or any red patterns, it's a red extension. This is a slide that I actually use with our CIO to walk him through our status on a clean core. In the upper left-hand corner, we start with a conversation of the number of extensions that we have in total and the breakdown across these three colors. What you see is when we started the project and the first presentation we did with him in September 2021, we estimated 310 extensions. That was our best guess of how we were going to need. But as we continued on with the project, as we drove for that fit to standard mindset, as we drove for process standardization, we were able to reduce the number of extensions from 310 to 222. We were very transparent with the mix of the reds, yellows, and green extensions. And at his demand, also talk about how we will pay down that technical debt. On the left-hand side, you see the conversation commitment that we were making between release 1 and release 2 to reduce the number of red extensions, cutting that in half, and cutting 14 of the red extensions out of our environment. This is our commitment to pay down the technical debt. We're also able to talk about the type of extensions that are driving the reds and yellows. And we have the conversations both internally and with SAP of where we can partner and improve these numbers. You see quite a few of our extensions related to master data governance. And this is a natural trade-off we're making between when do we take on technical debt, but ensuring high quality data versus putting our data at risk, but keeping our clean core. It's a really hard conversation to have, but it's the right trade-offs that we're making. The next third is all around our data lake. Chevron is committed to using a hyperscaler for our data lake. And these extensions reflect on the challenges we faced replicating data out of standard CDS views into our hyperscaler. And it gives us an area to have a conversation with SAP, talking about the future of those products and that capability. We talk about the bolt-ons, the reports, and the APIs, representing almost a quarter of our reds and yellows, and the need to standardize those, both from SAP and the third-party partners. And the last is probably a combination of little things where SAP is evolving and continuing to adopt a cloud-native architecture, but they're not making that investment as a big bang. It's an evolution, and we're seeing these extensions around the user interface, around the long text fields, data conversions, or even manual patches as part of their evolution to adopt a clean core in a cloud-native architecture. You can go from measuring the extensions based on building blocks and the colors or measurements. Now, how do we govern it? And it was interesting, our journey has to balance two competing objects. One is control, and the other one's speed. The more technical debt we're taking on, the more control we're going to want. But it also implies as we're going up this triangle, it's slower, but we want to perform at speed. We need to deliver this project on time. So how do we drive that and enable the Scrum team's autonomy? So we started creating this balance. If it's a green extension, an extension that only uses green patterns, it never makes it to the top of this pyramid. It stops at the release trains. The functional system architects are empowered with full authority on those green extensions. If it's yellow or red, we want to raise that visibility and ensure we're making the right trade-offs. So we see that coming to solution trains where we have our global design leads to ask the questions, are we standardizing our business practices before building a new extension, before taking on technical debt? We have the data platform architects or our integration architects or our application development architects helping us understand the technical trade-offs and the patterns when we do use something that's red or yellow. And finally, at the enterprise level, we're packaging this all together to present to both the program leadership and Chevron's IT leadership, ensuring we're making the right trade-offs to keep our core clean. Finally, let me go and talk about the behaviors where we're trying to balance the speed and control. I've hinted at using the traffic light colors of red, yellow, and green. And I want to kind of continue to build on that analogy. When we first introduced this, teams interpreted red as do not enter. We're giving them directions, don't ever use this. That was not our intent. So with the green light at a traffic signal, it means the intention is to proceed with the flow of traffic as long as it's safe to do so. And that's same with our intention of green patterns. Use the green patterns, create those green extensions at speed. Do not slow it down as long as it is safe to do so. A yellow, we want a little more cautious. As the traffic light turns yellow, it's an indication it's going to turn red. We want you to slow down and be deliberate as you enter that intersection. It's not stop. It's not don't do it, but caution. Something's going to change. You have to be mindful of your environment. Yellow extensions incur a level of technical debt. It's not saying it's not the right thing to do, but we need to make sure we're making the trade-off between technical debt and business value, and we should proceed with caution. Red should be considered more of a stop sign. We should stop, look at our environment, understand what's going on around us, and proceed if it is safe to do so. A red extension incurs higher technical debt. It will force us to pay down that debt in the future to stay with our clean core. We need to stop, understand the technical debt, the business requirement, and have a conversation of how we're going to pay down that debt and when before we proceed with building that extension. It's a stop. Be mindful of our environment before proceeding. These traffic signals and behaviors help us drive both the speed at the Scrum team level and the controls at the enterprise level to ensure we're managing our debt. So as with this definition that we started with of what is our clean core, made up of the extensions, the integrations, the business process, the data, and the controls, figuring out how we're going to measure it with the patterns and the colors and the reporting and visibility to our CIO, as well as this governance. Balancing speed and control has allowed us to drive and go on this journey to our clean core. So thank you for watching this session I hope you learned something about how Chevron defined, measures, and governs our extensions to achieve our clean core.